I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, September the 30th, brought to you in part by Noromycin by Norbrook. Noromycin 300 LA is your go-to antibiotic for a broad spectrum of cattle diseases and infections. It's a must-have in your vet shack, pickup, saddlebag, or four-wheeler, depending on what kind of cowboy you are. For more information, go to norbrook.com. Black and white, and I'm not talking about Holsteins, and I'm not even talking about black baldies, although I love to talk about black baldies because they're my absolute favorite. I'm talking about your investors in the cattle futures, your fund investors, your speculators, guys that we depend on to take the long side, guys that push the market. They need to see some evidence in black and white that shows that supplies are as tight as we know that they are, being in the cattle business and looking at it every day. And they need to see in black and white that they are going to be historically tight going forward. We see a lot of small signs of it, but we've yet to see any hard information. And you know, they can kind of believe us if they want to. Of course, a lot of them understand that, but they really would like to see some hard evidence of how tight, just how tight these numbers are going to get. We've seen the slaughter information. We know that our beef cow slaughter has been up like 13% more than a year ago, and a whole lot more than your 5-year average. But you know, that hasn't shown them yet that we're not going to have any steers and heifers to slaughter. And we can, you know, every time I talk about how tight supplies are, everybody beats me up and says, oh, they'll just import more. Yes, we do import quite a bit of product. Am I crazy about it? No, but we are going to have trade with other countries. We are heavily infiltrated with Brazilian interests here. Brazil down there, those same plants down in that country, they get a lot of cheap, brush-fed, just kind of you know, lean meat that wouldn't be too good to do anything with other than to grind up, and it's still not going to be very palatable, but it's cheap. They're going to you know, bring that into this country to add value to the trim that we have, because we overfeed so many of our cattle. We've got a lot of fat trim. Well, how do you add value to that? You throw it in the hopper with that cheap lean meat, and it puts out something that's pretty palatable. It's pretty cheap. Do they pass on all that cheapness? No, they keep most of that for extra profit. But yes, we're going to have some imports, guys. We're going to bring stuff in. We can't stop that. It does add value to our trim. Do I think that they should be able to put product of the USA on that? Hell no. I think we need truth and labeling on that. You know, that's ridiculous that we can't show people that is a product from outside the USA or even outside of North America. I'd be okay with product of North America, which wouldn't limit our production in our northern and southern cow plants for the most part, whenever they bring in the odd Canadian cow or the odd Mexican bovine to slaughter there. I'd be okay with product of North America. But we need to know whether it is or it ain't product of the USA. Do we have to go back to country of origin labeling that we had, you know, many years ago, that World Trade Organization said was against the rules and was going to fine us a tremendous amount of money? Do we have to have a list of every country that product could possibly come from? I don't think so. I don't need to know that. I just need to know if it is or it ain't product of the USA. Let's put it a little bit bigger on that label so that your housewives can see that. But we're going to get extremely tight on numbers, and we're not going to bring in a lot of muscle cuts, guys. We're not importing a lot of rib roasts. There's not very many places in this world that make rib roasts like we do, other than Canada. So we're not going to be bringing a lot of those in. The meat's going to get really high. Your packers are going to be scrambling for cattle to slaughter. We're not going to have very many numbers. Our feedlots are going to be empty for the most part, except they'll probably have a lot of light cattle in them because we don't have any place to put them other than in a feedlot because it's been so damn dry in the western 2/3 of this country that we don't have any place to put them. But despite the drought, which has hurt our market here, especially on calves here lately, despite the drought, we are going to have higher prices and significantly higher. It's supply and demand, and you can't fight off supply and demand. You know, the drought is not going to make more cattle. It's going to make less. Now, what the hell are we going to feed them between now and then? I don't know. We're going to have to come up with something. We're short of hay. We're a lot shorter on grain than what we typically are. We don't have any forage to speak of. What are we going to feed those cattle? Well, guys are going to have to figure that out. And the ones that can figure that out, and the ones that have some silage sacked up or packed up in a silage pit, guys that got a lot of hay, they can figure out how to inject some liquid protein into that hay if it's old, make it more palatable and use that. Guys that have stockpiled grass, guys that have planned for deals like this, for tragedies, drought, they're going to take advantage of that. And if they do take advantage of that, they'll make some money. If they don't, they won't. But you know, I still think that our big investors, the guys that go long the board, that push that, because as producers we're short the board all the time. They need something in black and white to show us that. I was visiting last week with Kelly Payne, who's the manager of Oklahoma National Stockyards, and she says we are going to be extremely short on receipts. That's the nation's feeder and stocker cattle market. She says she's bracing her people for much lighter receipts, and she thinks that going forward here through this fall and into the winter, they might be 30% light on feeder and stocker cattle receipts there. And of course, cows are going to be lighter too because we've killed all the cows. Most of your people in Texas, your order buyers and your shippers and guys that keep up on things, especially down in central Texas where we had the extreme drought over the summer, and we've seen one or two big rains and then it went right back to being dry. So they're still in drought. But most of them are thinking that we're 30% light on cows in Texas. So you know that's going to be that's going to be a game changer right there. So if we're that much lighter in Texas, I've said, man, we may not be the biggest cow state. The hell of it is, though, if we lose 30% in Texas, we're still going to have over 3 million cows in Texas, and the next closest state is Missouri. And at the end of the year or the beginning of this year, they had less than 2 million. So even if we have, even if we have big numbers like 30% less cows in Texas, Texas is still going to be the biggest cow state. So I'd mentioned that once before, but I misspoke on there because I didn't take a look. But I tell you what, the drought is terrible, but it's not going to make more cattle. It's going to make less. And the supplies are going to be tight enough that your market is going to respond, and it's going to respond in a big way. It is not dry in Florida. Hurricane Ian, it hammered Florida. And it hammered a big production area of Florida right there in the central part of that tail of Florida there. I was worried about those producers in there. I'm sure they lost a lot of cattle. Sure they had a lot of damage there. I got an email from Todd Clemens at Okeechobee Livestock. He said they had some damage there to the sale. They had a lot of rain, but he's still planning on having a sale on Monday and Tuesday, if this Monday and Tuesday, if producers can get the cattle in there. And he's figuring he'll help those producers, those that need to move cattle, because they may have lost fences and stuff like that. So good luck to those guys. Wish there was a way we could capture those flood waters and bring them over here where we could really use them. Let's talk about your board on Thursday. October live cattle futures were up for a change. They were oversold, been down all week long, but Thursday October live cattle futures up $1.07 at 144.12. December was up $1.50 at 147.77. Those gains are enough to take a couple of the days' loss that we saw earlier this week, but not all of it, of course. Your back months were up a nickel on your farthest out to up 125, closer to. Talk about your feeder cattle futures, September feeder cattle, which is going off the board, trying to align itself with CME Cash Feeder Cattle Index, but it was up just 60 cents at 175.97. That's real close to the latest available CME Cash Feeder Cattle Index, which was 175.94, but that's what they put out on Wednesday. It does not include Wednesday's sales. We lost nearly $2 on our real-time index on Wednesday. They're going to realize that. CME Cash Feeder Cattle Index is going to realize that when it comes out again the next time, and that may G-Haw, you know how that settles up there on your cash settlement for your September feeder cattle futures. But October feeder cattle futures were up $2.32 at 177.32. Your back months on feeder cattle were up 205 to up 267. Big gains on feeder cattle. And like I've been telling you, corn and beans have finally settled down here from their volatile trade while we're going through the meat of the harvest up in the Corn Belt, because we haven't got any results really back yet. Everybody's busy and they're just sitting at the edge of their chairs waiting to see you know, how big it's going to be. That corn was a penny lower at 669.5 on Thursday. Beans were 2 cents higher at 14.10 3/4 cents a bushel. Talk about fat cattle trade. We've moved several cattle here on a steady market. We could have had a higher market. You know, even the packers conceded that early in the week that we were going to be at least $1 higher. But when the board failed us, mostly on economic issues, the board failed us and we can't get any moisture. Then it settled right back into steady. But for the way things were this week, and they were not great, I think steady was a victory this week. And so we're going to take steady. We've gained some ground here recently on your cash negotiated market in your 5-area feeding region. But Iowa had 1,200 head confirmed on Thursday, over 22,000 for the week, so pretty decent movement for them. 145 to 147. Dress sales at 228. Nebraska had 1,700 confirmed on Thursday, 33,500 for the week. Live sales 144 to 145.5, and dress sales at 228. Kansas 900 head on Thursday, 8,600 for the week, all at 143. Texas 1,300 confirmed on Thursday, 7,400 for the week, mostly at 143. One deal at 143.5, and then some cattle that were turned in 65 to 80% choice. Had a few steers, a few heifers, and some mixed cattle on them at 141. What the hell? Box beef cutout values mixed again. I mean, we're looking for a bottom here, but choice dropped out again. We're talking about inflation of beef prices, but everybody's worried about that. One reason that the board was down all week. The prices of beef should not be higher in your stores, not any higher than they were the last few weeks, because box beef cutout values have been down. You know, maybe the retailers are keeping more than their share of this. But choice cuts on Thursday down again, $1.47. Man, they've been suffering. 246.08. Selects were up 57 at 219.78. Your slaughter up through Thursday for the week, still pretty good. We're expecting them to back off that. We may not have any Saturday kill, but up through Thursday, pretty dang close to the big week last week. 507,000 harvested. That's 2,000 less than last week. 30,000 more than the same week a year ago. Actual slaughter information come back for the week ending September the 17th. Almost unbelievable as low as our grading is, we're seeing fewer and fewer cattle grading choice and better. We had average stressed steer carcass weights at 918 pounds, 4 pounds bigger than the previous report. Kind of hard to swallow there. Talk about what else is going on. Willjet and 37 North Realty Group out of West Plains, Missouri, they've got an outstanding cattle ranch listed in Texas County, Missouri. That's south central Missouri there. Be close to Mountain Grove, Missouri. And, you know, it's an outstanding place if you guys are looking for a place that has grass and water consistently. Now, it's a little bit dry there also right now, but 417 acres on this cattle ranch, 90% of it good grass, a lot of hay fields included in that if you wanted to do that. They've got an excellent rotational grazing system set up there with not just hot wires, but 4 and 5 strand barbed wires in that rotational grazing there with swinging gates. I mean, not just a hodgepodge deal thrown up. I mean, done right. Got a 4-bedroom home on it. Got a heated shop on it, a hay barn, a commodity barn, cattle feeding barn, 100 by 220. It's got an older calving barn on there, kind of an historical dairy barn that's getting kind of redone. Excellent working pens on this place. It's got live water. It's got 4 wells. It's got year-round springs, ponds, and additional ranch of 420 acres adjoins it that they've also got listed. You could throw that deal in too if you wanted to, but it would run a lot of cattle. Get a hold of them there if you're interested at 37 North Realty Group. Talk about our feeder cattle market, a real-time index on DB auction. Late in the day on Thursday, sitting at 174.36, down 15 cents. But not the big losses that we'd seen earlier this week. But our markets have been lower all over, especially on calves. Stopped back in here, the friendly confines, to empty out my bags and reload them. But not going to see the old roll top desk. My dad left me for several visits again because it's getting a busy time of the year. Spent all week out in California, Northern California and Southern Oregon with Shane Strickler, Beringer Ingelheim rep there out of Northern California and Southern Oregon there, and then the veterinarian specialist there, Dr. Joe Gillespie from McCook, Nebraska. Had a good time traveling that country with them. We did several meetings and had a great turnout there, and it was great to meet all those folks. And those of you that are watching, I appreciate you guys coming out to those meetings. Talk about some of your big sales on Thursday. Winter Livestock, Pratt, Kansas, 6,000 head. Big sale for them. They're bringing the calves in right off the cow, guys. It's dry. It's dry out there, and their wheat prospects are terrible. But you know, the yearlings sold pretty good. Calves were $6 to $10 lower. I'll give you a individual stick out quote on both. 155 yearling feeder steers weighed 838 at 185. That'd be about $10 or more over your index level there, right in the center of the Southern Plains in Pratt, Kansas. How about some lightweight steer calves? It would part of that $6 to $10 lower, but don't sound too awful bad. 70 head of Pee-wee steer calves weighed 399, 400 pounds at 233. Farmers and Ranchers Livestock in Salina, Kansas, 1,800 head there. Market was kind of few on comparisons there, but stick out deal of yearlings was 60 head of yearling steers weighed 892 at 181.60. How about Stockman's Livestock Exchange in Dickinson, North Dakota, the East Barn? They sold 71 steers weighed 783 at 187 and a quarter, way up there in North Dakota. How about out east? Bluegrass Stockyard South in Stanford, Kentucky, sold 172 in one whack, weighed 891 at 173.90, and that's very respectable. They're starting to back off some of those eastern yearlings right now because before they get done, it's going to be cold in the northern plains, and a lot of those cattle go to the northern plains right there. But your Zoetta stick-out sale of the day was Mitchell Livestock Marketing. Jared Herman there, 2,600 head. Had a good sale there with well-tested weights all the way through. Going to give you several of them off this automated market report through Cattle Market Central. 227 head of 8-weight steers averaged $8.59 with a weighted average price of $179.82. Wow. 357 head of 9-weight steers in Mitchell, South Dakota averaged $9.53 with a weighted average price on all of them at $178.91. Can you believe that? How about some heifer quotes? 186 heifers in the 7-weight category averaged $732 at $173.94. 273 head of 8-weight heifers averaged $846 with a weighted average price of $162.57. And 363 head of 9-weight heifers, several fleshy ones in there, averaged $952 with a weighted average price of $157.83. The best quote that I saw anywhere or heard of, and your Mackerson, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Fairview Sale Barn, Fairview, Illinois. World champion livestock auctioneer Brian Curlis, my good friend, he sent this to me. He sells that sale. He was telling me about the Ray Poston steers. 252 head of steers off grass averaged $808 with a weighted average price of $189.03. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.